Hi, this is an explanation for week 9. Week nine's topic is all about poetry. We are now currently in the week 9 activities in Dropbox. You are viewing the video, and then your first activity is to click on the link to view the video, another video, to explain the social, emotional, cultural anchor competencies. Use the social, emotional, cultural anchor competencies framework while observing the video and the activity below the video. So this is the video here. This is the framework, that circle that you saw in class that has the anchor competencies and the teacher moves and the goals. And then you remember the framework because we worked on the framework. This is another copy of the framework. What you're going to do is you're going to click on the link for the Padlet, this one here, and you're going to post information for at least 5 of the 8 competencies that you know. Use the anchor framework or the information from the video or the resource guide. You have 3 resources here to use, and you're going to actually write some information for at least 5 of the 8 competencies on the Padlet. And you will see that when you open the Padlet here, you click on the Padlet, you will actually see the 8 competencies. You only have to write information for 5 of them. We're going to kind of create a Padlet. You've seen my other class had created that, and we used that. That was on one of the Google Slides. You may have seen that as well. So then read chapter 4 and the article Reviewing Poetry. After reading chapter 4 in our textbook and the article Reviewing Poetry, select a book of children's poetry and write a review of that book using the checklist Assessing Quality in Poetry, which is in figure 4.1, which is in chapter 4, and the information from the textbook and the article. Post your review in this Dropbox. You are to read 2 of your colleagues' postings and comment on their reviews. Then you're going to take a look at some approaches to teaching poetry. There are at least 2 distinct approaches to teaching poetry. One way is to teach the classics during a concentrated unit on poetry, working on discovering the meaning of a poem and the poetic devices that a poet used to convey the meaning. And another approach is to read poetry aloud regularly, allowing children to respond in a variety of individual ways, providing modern collections of poetry for children to browse through, planning and encouraging experiences like choral reading, and teaching how poems work when students demonstrate an interest. Now, I want you to discuss the differences in these 2 approaches. What assumptions does each approach hold? What are the pros and cons of each approach? How will classroom practice differ? How might children's responses to poetry differ? What assumptions does each of these approaches hold? Does the age of the students make a difference in using each of these approaches? You're going to respond to these questions in a Word document and post in the Poetry Wiki, which is what it says, but it's actually this Dropbox, and you're going to read 2 of your colleagues' postings and comment. The next activity is to look at some poetry workstations. After viewing the video below here, Poetry and Technology, you're going to create 4 poetry workstations which you would use in your classroom. Make sure one station involves technology, one station should be teacher guided, and the other 2 stations can involve technology or not. You can find ideas for these stations online using resources such as Pinterest or any other teacher websites. Please do not use worksheets unless they are used for just the instructions. Create a hands-on engaging activity for each station. And here is the video for that. Last but not least, you're going to create a poem. Of course, this is Poetry Week, and you need to be able to create a poem. Don't frantic and don't panic, because this is pretty easy. I have even created one myself, and I won't say I'm a poet, but using the information found below, write either an I am or I am from or a bio poem. I have written an I am from poem that you can use as an exemplar. There are other exemplars of the other types of poems in the information found below. You're going to post your poem in this Dropbox, and you're going to comment on 2 of your colleagues' poems. This activity is a strategy and resource for the social, emotional, cultural anchor competency, build trusting relationships. So what I have done here is to give you some information about an I am or I am from or a bio poem, This is my exemplar here. And then this is just another way to teach students how to create an I am from poem that you could use that I have found in the Social Emotional Cultural Anchor Competencies Resource Guide. And I just thought I would add that here as well. So those are the activities this week. I've added some additional resources just so that if you would like to take a look at it, you're more than willing to look at these three. They're pretty interesting. I'm fallen in love with poetry, even though I can't write it. I love teaching it to students and to children, and I hope you will too after this week. I will see you online. There's not an activity for a group work this week, so you're pretty much on your own, and there's no class, so I will see you online. As always, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask me.